going to take a lot of hate. We're going to be sued every day, numerous times. I think you'll see the left try to control the media. They're going to show the first crying female, first crying child, and say how inhumane we are. But they won't talk about 340,000 children that they've failed to take care of. They're not going to talk about the young women who have been murdered in this country at the hands of criminal cartels. They're not going to talk about the hundreds of angel moms and dads who buried their children. You want to talk about family separation? They buried their children because their children were killed by a member of a criminal cartel or someone that's not supposed to be here. They'll tell one side of the story. They'll try to vilify us, but they're not going to stop us from doing our job. I don't care what the media says about me. If they saw what I saw in 34 years, saw the tragedies I've dealt with in 34 years, they would certainly understand me. They may not still like me, but there's a reason why we do what we do. Yeah. I'm tired of women being raped, making that journey. I'm tired of dead children. I'm tired of women and children being sex trafficked. On this administration, sex trafficking is up 600% of women and children. We have a record number of people on the terrorist watch list being arrested. Historic record, 3,500% increase. Record number of Americans dying of fentanyl. We got a record number of cartel members that have entered this country. You know, the criminal cartels in Mexico making more money than they've ever made in smuggling aliens, trafficking in women and children, and moving dope. So hate all you want. Push the misinformation out all you want. We're not going to slow down. We're not going to go away. We're going to get this done.
And that is why, ladies and gentlemen, I rock with Tom Homan. That is why I rock with Tom Homan, for sure. And you know, one thing that he mentioned in that is quite interesting because it's already happened. He said that the media is going to try to control the narrative and they're going to show a woman or a child crying and claim how inhumane we are. Well, there's a video going viral on the internet of a woman who was attempting to get to the border before Uncle Trump officially was sworn in, and she didn't quite make it in time. She made it to the border, but made it just after Trump was inaugurated, and the CBP app, the app that the Biden administration created to help illegals basically come into the country a lot easier, a lot quicker, a lot smoother. That app was shut down before the before her appointment, whatever, or whatever. And this is the aftermath of that. Honestly, part of me feels like this is staged. Like, people, even this guy right here has his phone out. Nobody's like, oh yeah, I'm sorry, you know, it'll be all right, or anything like that. Nobody trying to console her or anything. So I almost feel like that one is staged, to be completely honest. Maybe it isn't, who knows, but I personally feel like that's staged. But what do y'all think? Let me know. But if it is real, do I feel bad? No, I don't. If I felt bad for anybody and everybody that were crying at the border because they were trying to leave a worse situation, I'd have no time to live life. Let's just be real. And the thing about it is, nobody's saying that any of these folks can't come to America to have a better life, you know, but you have to do it the right way. You can't just waltz into this country. That's not the way things go. And honestly, hey, if she would have gotten here earlier, which she had 4 years to do it, because on day one, Joe Biden rescinded all of Trump's border policies, border executive orders. She could have gotten in. Now, whether she was going to stay or not, that's a different story. But I don't feel bad personally. Let me know how you feel about that. Maybe I'm a terrible person for not feeling bad, but I don't think so. But one great story that is coming out of all of this is some illegals are self-deporting themselves already.
Trump has promised to carry out the largest deportation operation in U.S. history. And before those operations begin, some migrants are already choosing to leave the country voluntarily. News Nation's Jorge Ventura joins us live from San Antonio, Texas this morning with more on this story. Jorge, how many migrants are we actually seeing doing this, leaving voluntarily?
Right now, Marky, it's unclear, but we are starting to see a trend, and this comes as cities across the U.S. and Mexico are now bracing for President-elect's deportation operation. But his hardline messaging on those deportation efforts have some migrants panicking and some even choosing now to self-deport back to their home countries. I spoke with immigration attorney Rolando Vasquez, who tells me that some of the immigrants that he represents that entered under the Biden administration are now choosing to return home, fearing deportation under the incoming administration.
Just as recent as yesterday, they notified me that they're going to depart the country voluntarily, and understanding that, the Trump administration is going to carry through on their promises.
And it's not just Trump's deportation plans that are influenced these decisions. Vasquez says it's also that.
I can't remember. Maybe it was Trump. I think it was Trump. Listen, you start putting gators in this river, guarantee you won't have anybody trying to cross that thing anymore. Guarantee it. Some big old crocodiles up in that thing. Excuse me. Almost cursed there. So you get some giant crocs to go in there. Oh man, it's a wrap. It's over with. Walking across this river is done. It's cooked. Not happening. I think Trump should do it. Put up a wall, put some gators in the river, some big hungry gators. Get some get a bunch of canines, for the border patrol officers. Every officer has a canine, because obviously a dog is going to be faster than a human. You're not running from a dog. Anybody that's ever run from a dog knows. You better hope you got a mean head start and somewhere to jump, run into something, because that dog's going to catch you eventually. So every border patrol officer has a canine, gators in the river, wall goes up, barbed wire across the top, night vision for all border patrol, the whole nine. And, I think our border would be very secure, very, very secure. But let me know what y'all think.
Mexico is now open to accepting non-Mexican deportees. Mexico's move would impact Cuban and Venezuelan migrants the most, since those countries typically do not accept deportation flights from the U.S., but may from Mexico.
This is causing for many migrants to leave on their own, knowing that they're either going to be deported to their home country or be deported to Mexico. And they obviously, the overwhelming majority of them do not want to be in Mexico.
And my sources in Mexico tell me that it's likely that cartels and smugglers will exploit, kidnap, and extort those newly deported migrants. As of right now, it's unclear if Mexico has a plan to protect those deported migrants, Marky.
Yeah.
Well, Mexico's president got some work to do. All right. She got a whole lot of work to do. Whole lot of work. But not our problem. It's hers.
We heard him talk about a national emergency on the southern border. He's going to declare that here on day one. I want to go to Maria Villarreal. She's in Texas. She covers, obviously, the issue of immigration and the southern border for us. And Maria, they were expecting this, authorities in the border states, that Donald Trump would act and act quickly. And they've now heard it in the inaugural address. They now await the signing with the pen a little later this afternoon to put some of these words into action. Exactly what that action looks like remains to be seen. And as John Carl just pointed out, whether or not we'll see any sort of beginning to mass deportations still remains up in the air, though he's given every indication, President Trump, that he intends to act, and quickly here.
David, I think Mary Bruce probably put it best a little earlier, right? She said we heard the inaugural address and then we heard a second address. And I think that's when we really got a good sense of what Trump is really focused on, what's important to him, where he feels most comfortable. We've been talking about this all throughout the election, right? For me, though, this gave us a lot more perspective on what we can expect at the border. And I think that's what a lot of people, a lot of contacts and sources down here have been waiting for. There have been a lot of rumblings for weeks about what could potentially happen. I mean, obviously, he talked today about bringing back Remain in Mexico. We've also heard a lot of conversations around Title 42. And when you talk about those two policies coming back, David, I think it's a real concern, not just for the people that are going to have to respond to the issues that are going to happen along the border, but really what is going to be happening in Mexico. There are shelters right now that don't have a lot of migrants, don't have a lot of families, but their bigger concern is, like, if you implement a remain in Mexico, I mean, basically that in Title 42 allows people to just allows our federal government to push migrants back into Mexico to wait for their asylum cases to be heard. That will instantly create issues in these shelters. And then that's when we will also see the potential for a lot of those camps where, people are waiting along the border in awful conditions to try and get heard. I mean, this caused some.
Then why not do it the right way? Or tell Mexico's president to keep those people out. Simple. Stay in your home country. Start your process from your home country. Then you won't have to worry about sleeping in horrible, terrible conditions. I mean, it's quite simple to me, but maybe I'm an idiot. Y'all let me know.
Major issues and major tension between the U.S. and Mexico when these two policies were both in place during the first Trump administration and then, sweeping into the Biden administration as well.
Any indication from authorities there on the ground as to how far they think the Trump administration will go in these early days? You talk about Title 42, of course, was used during COVID. It was actually used in the early days of the Biden administration until the courts caught up with them. But there's been a lot of talk about whether or not that can be brought back in light of other concerns that are now on the radar.
And I think that is why it's so important for us to pay attention to the verbiage, the wording of how these executive orders will come out. Obviously, this is a very smart Trump administration that has been planning, what they're going to do along the border for not just a few months, but really the last year or so. How can they get around the court systems that have already said remain in Mexico cannot be used any longer by the Biden administration? So in order to bring it back, they've got to write that policy a little bit differently. So we got to pay attention to that. Also, Title 42. The reason why we heard the president come in and say, listen, this is a national emergency along our southern border, is that gives him a lot of freedom to then use things like our military, the Department of Defense, bringing troops down here, not just the National Guard anymore. So I think we're going to see him use those avenues, and then also the help of Title 42. Again, we've heard a lot of rumblings along the border, a lot of sources and contacts saying we do believe Title 42 is going to come back. This is something that local law enforcement, but more specifically Customs and Border Patrol, these agents can use instantly. It is plug and play for them, David, because they've already had Title 42 in place. They had 4 to 5 years of being able to use that particular policy. So for them, they're ready to go. It's just a matter of what comes out in those executive orders as to exactly, what situations will call for those policies.
Have any of the authorities who've witnessed sort of the change in just the last 6 months there, given the very late stage action taken by outgoing President Joe Biden, and has anyone asked the question down there, why not simply have acted much sooner for the Democrats, obviously given the swift reduction in just the issue at the border in the last 6 months?
We're actually standing in El Paso, right? This is a very blue area in a very red state. We've talked a lot to local community leaders here who have asked that exact question. Their hope was that during this last administration, the Biden administration, they would see, more of a concerted effort to tackle the immigration issue as a whole and to get everybody on board, right? That we would see this kind of bipartisan coming, to the middle of the aisle and really trying to figure out not just what the root causes were, but really what are the policies that we can put into place that will long-term fix this particular issue. Unfortunately, we saw that, border security bill that would have tried to fix some of the issues. Obviously, that was that didn't go through last December. And so then President Biden had to step in and issue his own executive order
which he could have done a long, long time ago. He could have issued an executive order years ago. But also, nobody talks about the bill that Republicans passed in the House and sent to the Senate, and the bill just sat on Chuck Schumer's desk. They always bring up this last bill that didn't really close the border, that basically legalized what was already going on, and it gave money to that sent money to the border to process people through faster. Ultimately the reason why Democrats didn't want to do much and Joe Biden didn't want to do anything is because they were banking on winning again and creating a whole new voting base and permanently keeping themselves in Washington with that voting base. And they failed miserably. They failed miserably. The people of America stood up and said, we've had enough. We've had enough. With all of the mainstream, look, and there's still, this is the thing. You're a journalist. You're supposed to know this stuff. The fact that I know it, I'm sure ABC does know it, but of course, since they're left wing, they don't want to mention it. They don't want to mention the Republican passed bill that Chuck Schumer never took up for a vote in the Senate. They never talk about it. Has anybody ever heard them bring up that bill? Oh, wait, let me know. Has anyone ever heard of mainstream media talking about the bill that Republicans passed like 2 years ago, over 2 years ago at this point, I think, and sent it up to the Senate, and it just sat on Chuck Schumer's desk? Because I haven't. They always just talk about this last one that Trump ended, whatever, which is kind of interesting, which shows how much pull or influence that Trump has, how much of a leader he is. If that's the case, if the guy wasn't even in office and he killed the bill, I think that says a lot about his leadership and his influence. So I want a guy like that can get some things done. When he says, hey, we need to get X, Y, and Z done, people are like, yeah, actually, we trust you. That's a good idea. We're going to get that done. And they get it done. And we got that guy now. We don't have a guy in office who can't get anything done and people laugh at and he trips over sandbags. You know what? Never mind. I'm gonna stop. Anyway, I'm happy Trump's back in office. We're going to have a secure border now. A lot of things are about to change, and it's going to be a great 4 years. I can't wait. Peace and love. I'm out.